Live from America's heartland, this is the Daily Truth Report with your host, Noah Christopher.
Welcome to the Daily Truth Report. I'm your host, Noah, and back with us today by special demand is Bo Polny. Bo, welcome back.
Noah, thank you for having me. I love speaking with you, and thank you for having me back. I appreciate it.
It is great to have you here. I want to say this right up front, we're recording this interview on April 10th, and I have to say these dates because some really big dates are coming up, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute, both with regard to President Trump and with regard to silver and cryptocurrencies. And we had Bo on just a couple weeks ago, and even in those 2 weeks, a lot has happened. And we are about 2 weeks out from what Bo is calling one of the most important time points in human history. So we had to have him back on. We are coming up on the middle of April, and April is supposed to be a big month, and it already has been. So, Bo, we wanted to have you back on. For the people that don't know you, you call yourself an analyst of time. You look at the time cycles in our world, the time cycles in the Bible, and you apply those to what's happening today in our world. So for people that have never heard about you before, tell people a little bit about how you do that and what you do.
Thanks, Noah. So, for many years now, I've been looking at the Bible, looking at the timelines laid out within the Bible, and I've taken those timelines and I overlay those timelines on present day. And within the Bible, it's been written, that which has been will be again. There is nothing new under the sun. And so in essence, what that's saying is that life replays itself. And so when life replays itself, that's a cycle. And so when you take these biblical cycles, and we know that now biblically life does replay itself with different characters, different events. So, people of old, there's new names now, but the cycles still replay themselves. And so when we take these cycles, lay them on present day, it's rather fascinating how accurate some of these time points become. And I think, we've talked about those in the past. I know with you, Noah, you've seen them happen. Probably one of the most epic timelines that we're following right now is the Noah's Ark cycle. And that Noah's Ark cycle started in April, the 20th, 21st of last year, 2020, that time point, again, it doesn't mean that we're doing Noah and the Great Flood. We're following the timeline of Noah and the Great Flood. And so that timeline basically from the 21st of April last year would be equivalent to the day God closed the door to the ark. And then there's three specific time points in that cycle. The next is 40 days, 40 nights, that will be of rain. That specifically took us to Pentecost. So you'll find that every one of these key time points actually land dead on key biblical feast dates, which is spectacular because it's mathematically impossible for this to happen, but it is. So from oil going to zero on the 21st of 2020, that triggered the door closing. That was a start. 40 days and 40 nights of rain took us to precisely May 31st, Pentecost, when the second seal opens. Basically, that relates to peace taken from the earth. That is exactly when the riots started on the earth. So you can verify this is exactly what happened, Pentecost. Then the next feast date would have been Rosh Hashanah. Well, wow, 150 days forward incredibly took us to Rosh Hashanah, another feast date. And what happens then? Well, the death of Supreme Court Justice Ginsburg. So again, it's not the death of Ginsburg, but these key things happen on these key dates, and these key dates are feast dates within the Bible. They're hugely important biblical dates. So you've got that date happen, which was 150 days, Rosh Hashanah. So the third critical date would be 220 days forward, and that points us to precisely this month, okay, April 26th. And this is not a new date that I've had. I know that you've listened to my interviews in the past. It was in May of 2020. very clear, May of 2020, the cycle itself, I was on the Greg Hunter show. I said that none of this ends. Basically, what starts in 2020 ends in 2021. And so the cycle itself, the date was stated of April 26th in May of last year. So April 26th is supposed to be an incredibly amazing date. That's the date where everything changes, and that will be the date equivalent to when Noah steps off the ark into a new world. So what that's basically saying is that something incredible is supposed to happen very soon. I'd say probably in the last week here of April, where coming into May, whatever big happens at the end of April, May is where we step into a new world, a new era. Biblically, it's supposed to be called a new era in time. So we'll see what happens, but April 26th is supposed to be the pivotal date. So we'll talk in the interview, but there's April 23rd, 25th, and 26th. So that whole window there is supposed to be incredibly important. So we'll see what happens. But so far, every single cycle point has brought important things.
Well, Bo, I remember watching that interview with you and Greg Hunter back in May of 2020. And I think you actually still have a few clips of that. We might splice some of those in right here so people can see what you were saying about a year ago. But I watched that, and you've been saying the same thing consistently now for over a year. And I want to take a moment and for anyone who's watching this and saying, well, this sounds a little far off or a little new agey to me, or looking at cycles of time. Let's just take a minute and Bo, this is all the Bible tells us very clearly that God establishes the cycles. There's a time and a season for everything. That's straight out of the Bible. The sun, moon, and stars given for marking the seasons and counting the days. And as you were talking, and you talked about that Noah cycle, it's really interesting. The Bible goes to great lengths to give us all these details about how many days things took and how many months was it in the cycle. It doesn't
right.
have to
If
tell
that
us
would,
that.
sorry to interrupt, no, but if none of that was important, why is it in the Bible? Why are precise timing dates and cycles, timelines within the Torah and the Bible? None of it, mainly the Torah. Why is it such precision that's in there? But it is. And then the other thing is, like you said, God is a God of time, and God is a God of time and seasons. Okay. So remember, when God made man, he didn't just make man, he made everything, right? So he made the plants, the trees. So remember, we are a part of the seasons. The nature knows the seasons. We don't understand the seasons to the degree that nature does, but what does spring bring? Planting, right? Because when you get planting, what do you get in the fall? You get a harvest. So understand that. And then in the winter, you get freezing. Well, we just saw a cold winter from what you saw going on in this world right now. Look, you got, they're signing presidential orders like you haven't seen before, executive orders, just surpassing everything. Let's just sign this, you just saw a cold winter and it's really cold. Like it sucked, including the weather, right? I promise you, Noah, and I promise your viewers, that cold winter that we experienced, those that did what they did, are they going to have a cold winter coming up? Okay. Because God's hand is about to move. When we move into this era, let me tell you, that first winter, is it going to be cold for those people who just pulled off what they pulled off?
I love it.
This year is going to be amazing because when we have a harvest, it's going to be a spiritual harvest. This fall is going to be incredible. But let me tell you, it's incredible for us. And then that fall is going to be followed by a horrible winter for those people. You know what they did. I'm not going to get, because of YouTube censorship, we can't, say too much. But I promise you, those people that did what they did, you just saw what went down this year. It's going to be 180 degrees different for them versus us this coming winter. And we've
Justice,
got an incredible year ahead. Justice is coming.
Justice is coming. I love that, Bo. That may be our headline. Justice is coming. Things may have felt delayed, but justice is coming, and spring is about to be sprung.
Right. Spring is a time of planting. Summer is going to be wonderful. And all of this directly relates into finances and everything. Okay. So it's all, this year is an epically important year because what started last year ends this year. And so this year we're starting off with a new year. We're starting off into this 2021 is now the birth of this new era. So we're heading into a new era. And that new era is supposed to be officially here the beginning of May as April ends. So, and remember, when God moves, okay, we haven't seen God's power in generations, in hundreds and thousands of years. You know who saw the power of God? Noah, when God cracked the earth and created the flood. Moses, when God cracked the earth and parted the Red Sea. That's the power of God. When God gets involved, like Moses said, stand firm and watch the salvation of the Lord, for he will work for you today. And when God moves, when I say today, it's this year, and it could potentially supposed to be this month, expect earth changes. So don't be surprised if we see volcanoes, earthquakes, all kinds of biblical things start to happen. We'll watch. We just wait and watch. But it's power is coming. The glory of God is coming. Glory because it's going to be anger, and it's going to be righteous anger on these people who just try to do something horrible to a covenant nation of God.
Well, Bo, that's why we had to have you on. It's April 10th right now, and this justice and this turning point in time is coming up. You've got some slides. It's coming up here at the end of April. Let's go through a few of those and just show people April 23rd through 26th. That's about 2 weeks out. It is not far. Walk us through a few.
Yeah, so we've talked through many of these. I'm sorry, no, we've talked through many of these slides before. So why don't you just kind of go through, where you want to start off at?
Yeah, that's great. And I will look below the video. Everybody, you can download these slides. We're going to skip over a few of them because we've covered them before, but go through and read these. These are just beautifully put together. Bo has a lot of information on every single slide. He's got citations, he's got references. You can read all of these, but we're going to jump in here. We're going to go all the way down to page 17, and we're going to start here and go down because this is what we're about 2 weeks out from. So Bo, why don't you take us through a few of these big dates, April 23rd through 26th, and show us what we're looking for.
There's no such thing as a coincidence. In the Bible, there's no such thing as coincidences. Everything is ordained and put and created and planned in advance by God. And I'm going to take you through a handful of different dates and things that you need to look at, because it's just impossible for all this to be happening, but it all is. And it starts off even like pages at the top. The big overall underlay of this whole thing is Genesis 15:13, which basically talks about Israel in 400 years of bondage. And then Moses comes in and, frees them from slavery. Okay, well, that 400 years ties in with the Mayflower. So we are overlaying the exact cycle that Israel occurred. So Israel is God's firstborn, and the United States is the covenant nation to Israel. So it's really incredible how this entire cycle is overlaid with a 400-year cycle. And then we can scoot over back to page 17. There's a Revelation 12 sign. From that time point, Revelation 12, it talks about 1,260 days. Well, 1,260 days lands on exactly that little yellow bubble. That takes us to March 8th, which is actually the final little pullback for gold. Gold went up, came back down, made a higher low just now into April. But the point being is gold itself, and then with silver particularly, both of those are God's money. So when this event goes down, we're going to see an epic explosion in value of God's money. Gold and silver. The precious metals are God's money, and they have been manipulated with a paper monetary system for generations. And that takes us to page 18, because how do they do it? Well, very simple. You detach the dollar from gold. So there's no link. So Nixon, in August of 71, severed the link between gold and the dollar. So what that means is basically the dollar's free floating. It's not attached to anything. All it backs it is faith and confidence backed by military might. But there's no attachment to gold. So because there's no attachment to gold, you can, in theory, create as much of it as you want. Do you think that happened, Noah? Well, let's see. 20, 30 years ago, they would talk about, how the government would create millions of dollars, right? So the word millions was used regularly. If you were in the 70s and the 80s a millionaire, man, you had lots of money, right? Well, in the 90s, millions didn't do anymore. So in the 90s, you had to be a billionaire, right? Into the early 20s. So there's the billionaires because millions didn't do anything for anybody anymore. And now these people who are really wealthy are getting into be, high billionaires into the trillionaires. And now they're creating, these people, because there's so much money, we're into trillions. Okay. No one heard of trillions in the 70s.
That's right.
Okay. No one used that word because it was such a large number that you couldn't even understand that number. So in the 70s, it was all millions. Then it went to billions, now it went to trillions. And so they're creating money out of thin air. They create this money to create bondage and they just lend it out to everybody. And then, a lie repeated enough times becomes the truth. And so that's all that's happened. So now there's this monetary system that the world relies on, uses, but unfortunately it's not backed by God's money, right? It's detached. And so all it is backed by faith and confidence. So now we get into something really incredible, which we're talking biblical times. So there's part in the Bible, it's Leviticus 25:9. And 25:9 is on page 19. Page 19 specifically states, sound the trumpet on the 10th day of the 7th month. For there shall be a year of Jubilee. Biblically, the 49th year ended. The 50th year started in September of last year on Rosh Hashanah.
And this is a big deal. The year of Jubilee. Explain that a little bit more, Bo. That's a huge deal.
So the year of Jubilee is a time point biblically where man is supposed to restore balance based on God's law. Okay, that's really what it is. Man is supposed to restore balance based on God's law. However, if man doesn't do it, God makes it happen. Okay, so this is a point now where they don't want to make this happen. They refuse to back down. So what's going to happen is God, if this is going to be a biblical moment, God's going to force his hand. He's going to take down the dollar. And that just means remove faith and confidence from it. When that happens, that's going to then affect the bond market shortly thereafter. So we're going to have something crazy go down these next 4 months. So May, June, July, and August. Because remember, 50th year would end in August 2021.
Yes.
So we've got April. So from the 23rd, really, we've got another week left. So then basically that takes us all of May, all of June, all of July, and then say into August. So basically about the next 4 months are supposed to be the craziest months the world has ever seen financially. And then that leads to all kinds of other crazy stuff. It's a time point of breaking the chains of bondage. Thousands of years ago in the time of Israel, it was chains. Now it's basically a debt slave monetary system. So what's coming? Will it happen on 23rd? I don't know, but I'm telling you, I ordered a shofar from Israel. It arrived here last week, and I am going to be blowing my shofar on the 10th day of the 7th month, April 23rd, because I'm sounding the trumpet on that 10th day of the 7th month.
Love it.
Because I'm just telling you, something's coming, something's about to happen. That takes us into the next line on 21. If you look at Israel, again, we talked about the Bible, right? So what happened? It was after Passover, Pharaoh releases Israel. So then they leave the next day. Biblically, it says it takes them 20 days. And that's talked about in Exodus 14, how it takes 20 days to get to the Red Sea. On the 20th days, when the Red Sea, God closed the Red Sea on Pharaoh's army and destroyed Pharaoh's army. So that moment in time in this era or this timeline would be equivalent to April 25.
The Red Sea moment.
Red Sea moment. Now this gets even better, okay? Like, how many coincidences do we need here, okay? So now it gets crazy, because if you go to the next page, page 22, I don't want the glory in this, okay? God showed me how to do the timelines, okay? These are God's timelines. I'm just doing the calculations based on God's timelines, okay? So please understand this. I'm trying to get people to see that we live in biblical times. This is why it's so important to see this last slide here, because on this, well, not the last slide, but this in terms of cycles, page 22 talks specifically about Noah's great flood cycle. So we've talked about this in the early part of the interview about Ginsburg at 150 days, then 220 days would take us to April 26, 2021. Well, this is really incredible, because if you Google, now don't even take my word for it, Google Second Passover 2021. And guess what happens? You'll get a date coming up of April 25, 2021.
Wow. Wow.
So, and the reason for a second Passover is because those that were unclean at the time of the original Passover, that date would now be April 25, 2021.
Well, and Bo, I've heard from a couple other people that have watched our last interview that you're calling, and I don't know enough to be knowledgeable about this, but you're calling it the second Passover. I've heard some people call it the true Passover, that this is really the date that the true Passover is supposed to happen. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So on that slide at page 22, you'll see in the gray section right below that, it says second Passover, but is it really the first Passover? I think it's the real Passover, because Enoch, who was alive before Noah, okay, Enoch wrote, and it's written in Enoch 73:10 through 16. He wrote that if a full moon happens before the equinox, then a 13th month will be added. This would therefore make April's 26th the only Passover. So understand that the full moon, this we're talking of last year, the full moon happened March 9th, and the equinox is on the 19th. So that would therefore create a 13th month necessity. And the reason for this is because it's the balancing of the sun and the moon. You know that like a calendar year, we understand to be 364.25 days, but biblically a year is 360 days in the Bible. There's an offset of a 13th month.
Yeah, that is really interesting.
And so therefore Passover, and this is Passover, second Passover would end, or the real Passover therefore would end on April 26th.
There's that date
I don't know.
again.
Is that just a coincidence that this lines up perfectly with the great flood cycle that we've talked about since May of last year? No, but let's just add one more layer just for fun. Guess whose birthday it is on April 26th? How about the president's wife, Melania? She's 50, turning 51 in the year of Jubilee, 50. I don't know, just another coincidence.
Oh, wow.
It's just layers upon layers upon layers of coincidences.
Wow. Well,
there are no coincidences.
That's why we had to have you on, Bo, because we are 2 weeks out from seeing these dates go back to back to back, April 23rd, 24th, 25th, and 26th. And I'm excited. I get people emailing me every day saying they can't wait for this time to get here. So we're looking forward to it.
Exactly. It's so exciting because the world is basically in a heck of a major problem here. Okay. We've come to realize that nothing can stop these people.
Yeah.
Am I wrong? Have you seen the military be able to stop these people? Right. Have you seen the prior president be able to stop these people? When I say prior, actually the current president being able to stop these people. And I don't mean the one that's, starts with a B. I mean the one that starts with a T. Okay.
45.
Right. 45. He hasn't been able to stop these people. Because the swamp is so deep, it's infiltrated throughout the whole world. And the more you study it, that's exactly what's going on. Okay. Only one entity can stop this, Noah.
That's
and
right.
It's called God.
That's right. There you go. And it's also not the Supreme Court. We've sure seen that fail, haven't we?
Right. These people go to no ends to push their agenda through. Unless we have a biblical intervention, nothing's going to change. I promise you. Okay.
That's right.
But the point to the biblical intervention and the point to the cold winter and the point to us seeing all this is to show the world what's really going on. Because when God intervenes, he's going to knock one heck of a lot of people to their knees, Noah.
If there's ever going to be a great financial event, it would have to be biblical, right? Because financially, everything will change. It's the third seal. If you look at it, it's a picture of a guy and a horse with scales.
Mm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the more, it was started off like this with millions, billions,
Mm-hmm.
trillions. Okay. So that's your balance right now. Is that a balance? Or is that
Right.
out of balance? Okay.
That's
and
right.
then what does God do? With Nebuchadnezzar, he writes on the wall, Nemi, Nemi, Tekel, Charis, right? Your days are numbered and your kingdom has come to an end.
Mm.
So we're about to see your days are numbered and your kingdom has come to an end.
Hey, Bo, if you just said there, I don't know if you're aware of this, but in recent interviews, a couple of prophets, I think on Elijah streams, I saw, and I think Amanda Grace was one of them. Two separate prophets both had dreams in the last week or so where they had these dreams or visions. I think one was a dream, one was a vision from the other person. And it was that exact writing on the wall. And it was Joe Biden in the room being told that his days are numbered and his presidency is over. So that the fact that you just said that lines up. I don't even know if you'd heard that before, but
no, that's the thing. That's what happens when you're all connected spiritually with God. He talks to me differently than he does to the prophets, but I still get things, and so just by me saying that, I don't know why I said that, but it was the Holy Spirit, pushing it out of me. So I'm just telling you, all of these things are lining up for something incredible about to happen. And, and just as we talked about our last interview, what happened on the last day of winter, on the very last day of winter, Biden walks up, the Air Force One trips 3 times, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, last day of winter. Now spring began the next day, and that was the day of our interview on spring day 1. Okay. So his kingdom is coming to an end. And that night, Nebuchadnezzar died. So if you think this is all like hopelessness, okay, let me explain to you the power of my God, okay? This is what people need to understand. My God is the one that basically had Pharaoh's army charging at him, and they were pinned against the Red Sea. Noah raises his staff, not knowing what's going to happen. All of a sudden, the Red Sea parts. How long did it take to cross the Red Sea? I don't know, because I couldn't find that in the Bible, but let's say it took 6 hours. Let's say it took 10 hours. Let's say it took whatever it was. But I would promise you, if it didn't take probably more than 10 hours to cross that Red Sea for all of Israel, and at the end of all that event, guess what happened? It was over. It was over for Pharaoh's army. The Red Sea crashed and destroyed his army. So if you think that this is hopelessness, absolutely not. God is not going to forsake a covenant nation, where he made a covenant. Covenant is not a contract. It's a covenant with a creator, which means he will protect the United States. But we also, as a people, need to pray. This evil was not going to go away. Evil is still here. But after this event, evil will go into hiding. We get a window to prepare. Evil comes back, but they're going to go into hiding because many are going to get destroyed, taken down. Their kingdom has come to an end. Particularly, you can scan through, you can see page 31, all the spiritualists that don't believe in God. Please give me an example of one psychic or one entity that has been able to predict 3,000 years of what's going to happen, because I can give you a prophet by the name of Daniel, because 2,600 years ago, he gave this prophecy to Nebuchadnezzar, and he described every single kingdom that has ever been on this earth. And he laid it out to Nebuchadnezzar 2,600 years ago. That is an impossibility to lay out the kingdoms of Babylon, Persia, Greece, Rome, the papacy, and then leading into the United States. That was nearly 3,000 years ago, 3,000-year-old prophecy laid out to Nebuchadnezzar. My point being is, everything we're witnessing has been written biblically. We are living in biblical times, and we are at the state of page 7, which the rock comes in. And how do you take down a giant? You take him out at the ankles, and that's what's going to be happening. We're going to go, if you go to page 32, that's the rock of ages. God's going to destroy, going to take him down at the ankles, just like you saw Biden being taken down at the ankles. That's
Look at that.
What's coming.
Wow. That's right. I love it, Bo. Well, let's transition. Headline so far for me is Justice is Coming, and some really good things are about to happen politically and for our nation. But there's also another side to this, and that's the financial side. And that's the other reason I wanted to have you on today, April 10th. You have said that April is going to be absolutely explosive for a lot of things. You say the dollar is the debt instrument, the bondage instrument. The dollar's going down, and that also means crypto is going up. And it seems like every time we have you on, we do a little snapshot. But this stuff is moving faster than you can even keep up with it. And it just so happens that as we're having this interview on Saturday morning on April 10th, that Bitcoin is now over 60,000 and starting to make what looks like a big move. You've been talking about April being hot. Let's go into that a little bit. Tell us a little bit about, have people missed the boat? Is there still time to get on? What's coming next? I'll just let you take it away.
Actually, if you don't mind, why don't you scroll over to our Bitcoin chart that I did a couple of weeks ago? I think this might have been with our last interview. It's on page 41.
Got it.
This is, I think, from our last interview or prior interview with someone else. But the point being is, at that time, Bitcoin was 51,500. That was dated March 25. You'll notice that the key time point is Yom Kippur, that big yellow bubble in the dead center of the page. 10,000 was always like that level that Bitcoin could never bust through, could never take out. And you'll notice if you look at a dollar chart, that was the day the dollar turned down, and then it dropped all the way into the end of last year. Now it's come back up. But the point being, that was the delineating time point, because that also lines up with the Year of Jubilee, the start of it, the 50th year in September. So the dollar itself began to drop on Yom Kippur, which was September 28th, which was the end of the 10 days of awe. So you'll notice that as the dollar's been falling, Bitcoin has been rising, and aggressively. Okay, we're not talking a little bit. We're talking it's up 41,000 as of then. Now we're at 60, so it's up nearly $50,000 from 10,000. Okay, so that's a huge move, and we haven't seen the dollar plunge yet.
Correct.
Okay, so when the dollar plunges, the Bitcoin is the opposite to the dollar. So Bitcoin is going to do a very powerful move vertical.
You're saying we haven't seen the powerful move vertical yet.
No. We haven't seen it. You haven't seen an explosion in Bitcoin yet. So we're only warming up.
Wow. Because that chart looks pretty explosive to me already.
Right. But the dollar hasn't dropped. So the dollar is going to be a biblical event. Something powerful. So we're going to see something incredible go on with Bitcoin, which then is going to be fantastic for many of the other coins as well, too. So Bitcoin itself, think of it like an ocean, right? And you're in a harbor, and in that harbor you got the water, and you have hundreds of boats in that harbor. So as the tide rises, that's Bitcoin. All the boats rise with the tide. So when this explosion happens for Bitcoin, all the alternate coins, at least the good ones, are going to have a very powerful move as well. So this is like a full crypto move, not just a Bitcoin move that's coming. It's a cryptocurrency move that's coming, and it's all going to be vertical for Bitcoin and the strong coins. And that's going to directly also tie in with God's money, gold and silver. It's just that Bitcoin, they've had more difficulty controlling it because you've had a lot of people, when I say people, big billionaires piling into Bitcoin, like Elon Musk and a lot of others that are really, very big institutions. And so they can't control the price of it as they can, as easily as they have with as they can with precious metals. But ultimately, when God intervenes, God is a multiplier God. Damages, and there are many, damages for what they've done is in the Bible sevenfold. So, what's the first target on silver? We'll just multiply whatever price you want by 7, and that would be damages. Then
let me go to that page, Bo. Let's talk silver. Let's look at this.
Right. So silver's on a cup and handle formation. Those that do not understand charts, the simplicity of it is I try to make it so simple so you can understand. I have 2 charts and one at the top there. It's just example. It's an example chart of what's called a cup and handle chart pattern. So whether you understand charts or not, it's just a visual thing to look at. So look at the chart at the top. That's an example of what's called a cup and handle. The chart at the bottom is an actual chart of silver. 40
Wow.
years,
Looks like
every candlestick's a month, right? So look at it and tell me that they don't look similar.
it looks identical. Wow.
That's for you to decide. If they do look similar, look where the blue arrow is pointing and look what's missing.
Uh-huh. And that's the blast off point.
Right. And so at some point, and I believe it's going to be tied in with Leviticus 25:9-10, behold, the year of Jubilee, that's going to trigger that move. And then, and where it leaves the handle, it just goes vertical. And people have been screaming forever, oh, silver is manipulated. Yeah. But this is the beautiful part about charts and cycles. It's manipulated to create a perfect cup and handle. I don't know. People, so it's incredible what's happened. And, but the chart patterns are saying what's coming. And then if you read page 27, these are not my words. These are prophetic words of God by the prophet Lois Vogel Sharp. Gold goes off the charts. What does off the charts means? It means as high as you can basically see, goes vertical. And silver becomes a new item of economic security that opens a new door of luxury for those who have attained this precious metal. That was a prophetic word. Take it for what it means. Take it for what you want it to mean. But though that was a prophetic word from last year.
Because so many people have become discouraged about silver, and they just say, well, it's never going over $30 an ounce. It's over. It's never going to happen.
Well, like I tell my kids, never's a very long time. Never is a very, very long time. And biblically, the best word I can use biblically is the word suddenly. And suddenly everything changed.
That's right. That you see that word a lot in the Bible, don't you?
Yeah.
Yes. Suddenly. I love that. So you're talking, I want to go back to something you just said. You said damages are sevenfold in the Bible. Damages for this type of manipulation, this type of holding down God's money for how long was that chart? Back to 1980?
40 years.
So for 40 years.
40. Yep. Yeah.
So damages are sevenfold. And I've heard you talk about blessings too in the Bible. Blessings even higher than that.
Yes, Jesus Christ, through his apostles, talked about blessings. And he says blessings are either 30, 60, or 100-fold. So just remember, God's a multiplier. And so whatever, and I think that's would be after the damages. So I would say silver becomes, we've seen it happen just in February where they shut down all the ability to buy it, right? So when these events go down, don't be surprised if all the exchanges that sell it and the coin shops, everybody shuts down.
There are a lot of reports. I've been covering it the past week. There are a lot of reports that the Perth Mint out of Australia may be dangerously low on actual physical silver and may be unable to start fulfilling orders. That I have had multiple articles that I've written and covered that, and it is not looking real good. So you might be right. So.
Well, and that's the thing. See, but again, this has gone on for generations, right? So they're always going to try to be able to somehow out of smoke and mirrors continue to perpetuate this lie. And so we've seen it happen for generations, right? This is we're 40 years now, and who knows how long it's been going on, right? But when we have a biblical intervention, when God intervenes, if we are truly going to see a Leviticus 25:9 moment, right, then the truth will, the saying is the truth will set you free. Well, the truth will set silver free. Okay. So the truth not only will set us free, the truth is going to set silver free.
Yeah.
And then we get to see damages, and then we get to see ultimately blessings don't come, the same day, but a year or two out or a few years out, you see the blessings roll along as well too, to people that have repented and asked for forgiveness from God for everything that has happened. These are biblical times. We're living in biblical times. And if you don't think your world has changed forever, well, then you haven't looked outside or you haven't turned the news on. Then again, I don't watch the news anymore. It's nothing to watch.
That's good. Well, Bo, I want to make sure I have this correct too. You feel like, and every time we do an interview, I always see a couple people in the comments saying, "Oh, Bitcoin's bad. It's for money laundering, or for buying drugs, or for all this illicit, illegal activity." And we should be very clear. You're not saying Bitcoin is God's money. You're saying gold and silver are God's money, but Bitcoin front runs the mania, and it comes first.
Number one is, what has controlled the world for generations before Bitcoin was ever around? The dollar.
The dollar, right?
So what has been used for bribes and payoffs for generations? It wasn't Bitcoin because it was never around. You think like just bribes and payoffs just started like when Bitcoin came around a few years ago? Like, come on, right?
Right.
It's never been about Bitcoin. It's all they do is number one is they don't want you to use cryptocurrency because why? You don't need a middleman, the middleman being the bank, right? So it's peer-to-peer. So I can send you $1 or $100 or $1,000 in a fraction of a second, but there's no middleman. Okay, that's how peer-to-peer works. Why would the banks not want that? Well, because they're not in the middle anymore. Okay, so that's why they'll say whatever they can. That's why Bitcoin died 1,000 times already. They've announced it, and it's still alive. Okay, so number one is to someone to say that Bitcoin is used for money laundering. I would tell you, money laundering has been going on a lot longer than Bitcoin's ever been around. Number one.
Great point.
Okay? So that money laundering came around with money, paper money. That's where the word came from. Okay. Bitcoin, you can say whatever you want about it. Bitcoin itself, because it's made by man, it will ultimately be controlled by man. And so to put all your eggs in one basket and not buy precious metals, I think is foolish, because you're basically buying into another monetary system created by man. And that is what is made by man ultimately is controlled by man at some point. So be very careful, because biblically you got to read about the coming mark of the beast, and before Obama left, he turned over the internet to the UN. Okay,
right.
So a lot of people itself might make millions, and many are going to make that. Okay, but in the future, I don't mean tomorrow, and I don't mean this year yet or next year, but in the coming years ahead, the internet will be to be able to log in, you're going to have a mark. And so you're going to have to decide, do you basically want to continue being a multimillionaire, or do you want to, sell your soul to Satan, because you're going to have to do that to log in to the internet. To have all your monies in the cryptocurrencies is a really bad idea. But in the short term, if you're involved in it, you're transitioning your wealth as the money transitions. So as Leviticus 25 happens, money drops, cryptocurrencies explode, you're basically a part of the money transfer, so you get blessed. Nothing wrong with that, okay? But then the blessings are used to build God's church. You need to do things with it and not just be a hoarder of the cash, because that hoarding is going to cause a big problem for you in the future. And ultimately, the best and the safest insurance you could ever have, that I think that's available, is God's money. Because if you have gold and silver, there's no blockchain affiliated with it. It's completely in and of itself. It's not related to anything. There's no middleman. There's no counterparty risk. It's just money. And you can use it for whatever you want to use it for. It's a monetary instrument.
Well, so that's a great point, Bo. So for someone just getting started in this, it can be overwhelming. You always tell people, first of all, you got to make your own decision. Everyone has to make their own decision. You're not a financial advisor.
Everything I'm talking to you here about, these things that I've personally done, you don't have to do a thing. No one here listening has to do a thing that I've done. I'm just telling you what is in my heart. You can take what you want from it, but the whole world is based on one key thing. It's free will. Yep. Choose wisely. What did Aaron say when he came down the hill with Moses, right? Choose this day whom you will serve. Choose wisely. So when no one's forcing or telling anybody to do anything.
That's what I love about having you on.
You need to pray on what you and I are saying, pray what you're hearing, see if it rhymes with your heart. And make your own personal decisions. Choose wisely. Choose this day whom you will serve, and make good decisions, not educated decisions. Make decisions from your heart. Those that are too educated, unfortunately, and don't listen to their heart, many times you can get steered in the wrong direction. So the truth comes from in here.
Yeah, I love that. And Bo, you've said many times on this show that the best thing to do is just get started. Just buy some silver or buy a little bit of Bitcoin, or maybe Bitcoin might not be the right one for you. Bo, you write a newsletter, and I get that newsletter, and you tell people all the time, don't sign up for my newsletter. And I love that. You take your time on a Saturday morning to come talk to us, and we put this video out, and you put it out for free. You put your time out for free, and then you tell people, don't buy my newsletter. But if people do want more information, because every time we do one of these, I get flooded with emails, and you probably get the same thing. Bo, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? What's a good idea? How do I buy this stuff? And so you do put out a newsletter with a lot of that information in there. You cover some coins. You don't have to buy Bitcoin right away, and you certainly don't have to buy an entire Bitcoin. The fun thing is you can buy fractions of these coins, but you tell people what you're personally doing. You don't tell anyone what they should do, but you just tell them what you're doing, which coins you like, which ones look like they still have a long way to go. And you just put out, for anybody listening to this that's a subscriber of your newsletter, they would have gotten this a couple days ago. I got it, and it was incredible. You go through all the coins on the screen there, and you talk about where do you think they're going to go in April, what looks likely, and then where do you think they're going to go for the summer of 2021. And I got to tell you, I read through some of those, Bo, and my head was exploding, because some of these moves that you're expecting are exactly that damages and blessings type of move. I mean, you've got one. I can't tell people what it is because you put a lot of hard work into this, but there is one that's about 9 cents right now. And you're thinking it's going to pretty quickly go up to about 25 cents, and then maybe ultimately in the $3 to $4 range. And I'm looking at that going, wow. I mean, that is a move that you don't see that in the stock market.
Well, that's what cryptos are doing. You're right. They're moving at excessively large rates. But remember, why are they doing that? Because we're not talking millions of dollars or billions. We're talking trillions of dollars have been created. And so, energy itself, from a concept of physics, just doesn't disappear. It's transition, right? So we're seeing the monetary system shift from one energy to another energy. So, and ultimately, that's going to pile in as well to silver and gold. So we're just seeing money flooding the cryptocurrency market right now, and we haven't even seen the big moves yet. So it's really exciting what's coming. 2021, wow. If this is going to be a biblical year financially, it would directly relate to what is called Leviticus 25:9, which is sound the trumpet on the 10th day of the 7th month. This will be a year of Jubilee. So that means God is going to rebalance the financial system, not man. If this is a biblical event, it'll be the greatest financial event in human history. And so those involved who prepared for it up front get to see, damages and then blessings later on. It's exciting what's coming. And, for those unprepared, it's going to not be a great time. For those who didn't want to prepare, and for those in the paper financial system, they're going to have a lot of problems because God is going to get involved. And how do you stop what's going on? Well, you have to ask yourself what controls what's going on. Mm-hmm. What is the mechanism that is used to control the world? The monetary system, the dollar. So how do you stop what's going on? You stop the use of the dollar, or you take away the faith and the confidence from the dollar. So I don't know how this is going to go down. I'm just saying that we started with a year from September to August. We've, so if this is August here, this is September, we got that, right? Yep. We got May, June, July. So I hope Wonderful. People have prepared.
Well, it is not for a lack of trying on your part. We thank you again for coming on this morning. You came on a couple weeks ago. I wanted to get this out there because we are 2 weeks out, and I can't wait to see some of this stuff start happening. Some of these dominoes start falling. It's going to be incredible. I want to tease one other thing, Bo. One of the other questions I get every time I have you on is I get a bunch of emails from people saying, we hear what you're saying. We want to get on board with this. We realize we want to move some of our money out of that paper monetary system and get it into some of this new stuff, but we don't understand. It's confusing. And it's not ready yet, but you are working on a product. It's almost like a school. It's a tutorial. It's going to teach them what all the words mean. It's going to teach them how to get some of these accounts set up, where to go, which ones to trust, which places not to trust, how to do it safely. If all of this is confusing to you and you'd like kind of the 101 starter course, you're putting that together, aren't you?
Yeah, we'll have that added to our site. Gives people kind of like the simplicity of, how to pick some cryptocurrencies up and then ultimately how to store them safely, because that's the ultimate key, is just to store them safely as well too.
If you've emailed me about that, I apologize to anyone listening to this. I cannot reply to all those and explain to everybody how to do it. It takes some steps. You want to make sure. A lot of us have learned by trial and error, and Bo is going to help you eliminate that error part, so you don't have to learn the hard way like some of us did. But there is a bit of a learning curve, and I just can't respond to every email and answer those questions. But Bo is putting together something that I think is really going to help everybody. So stay tuned. Watch for the next week or so. We'll try and get that out to you, and I think you're really going to like that. And if you want to get Bo's newsletter, he also gives you a code there. You can plug in NOAH49. Details on the screen there. You go to Bo's website. Bo, tell them your website.
Yeah, so it's gold2020forecast.com. So that's
right in the bottom of every slide there, gold2020forecast.com. If you want to get his newsletter with all those targets, Bo, when they join, would they get access to that one you put out this week with all your targets for the summer? Is that in the archive?
Well, actually, everything's when you subscribe, you get everything. You can go back to our April update of 2020. You get everything. You guys can before that as well too. But the point being is April 2020. And so when you subscribe, you just get access to all the reports. There's no
perfect.
It's kind of really fun because you'll see right in April of last year, we're like, hey, this is it. This is a start point for the bull run. And the point being is that the patterns are the patterns. So this week I did add price projections, which again are just possibilities, but very realistic possibilities for many of these coins. So we've got a lot of excitement coming here over the next few months. We'll see how it plays out. But I do know that the cycle patterns are going to be rather accurate. So like what we do in the report is not so much a price based, as you've seen, Noah. It's time based. So cycles give me the ability to put together timing points, and those timing points are actual dates. So they're key dates that mark either highs or lows. And that's important if you're a trader. If you're not a trader, who cares? Just, buy cryptos or buy silver and gold, and it's all you need, because that's really all anybody really needs. But those that want to capitalize on some major swings, and there are major swings coming, because when you have such a major price explosion, right? Don't be surprised if you see Bitcoin crash 40,000 points or something crazy coming up. I don't know the number, but it just, the bigger the price explosion, the bigger the crash, because that's just how it works. These swings become astronomical just because the prices get so big. So, I don't know what the price we've got price targets, but if some of these price targets are hit, then do expect huge price corrections as well too, and then another run up higher. So a lot of volatility hits because they don't want the cryptocurrency system to come online, but it's going to happen. They don't want gold and silver to come online, but it's going to happen. So you're going to see a massive financial war.
Well, that's pretty cool, Bo. I actually never thought about that or done that myself, to go back and look at some of your old stuff, even back a year ago. But you're proud of what you put out, and you don't hide from any of it. And you go back and look, and I think you'll be pretty amazed. I haven't looked at those old reports, but I have watched your videos for a long time and looked back at those. And it is pretty incredible how you've been saying the same thing for a while, and you've been telling people now's the time. And every time you say that, it's time to listen and pay attention. So that'd be a fun thing. That's all in there. You can see Bo's historical accuracy in his analysis of time. And I can tell you just from being part of it that it's a pretty cool thing to read and watch. Bo, why don't you leave us with a few parting thoughts? It's April 10th. What's the big takeaway for you at this moment? What do you want to leave people with?
Man cannot challenge God and win. Remember that. Man just challenged God. That doesn't end well. Evil cannot overcome God's will. So whatever evil's plans are, this is not God's will. Evil came in early. This is not going to last. It's so important to understand that God the Father is in control of it all. So fear not, have faith, for God the Father is in complete control. Do not be afraid, because Satan's only weapons are to kill, steal, and destroy, to keep you scared. Don't be scared. Don't
That's
be scared.
perfect.
It's
Don't be
so
scared.
important to not be scared. Many people watch the news right now and they're scared. They're listening to all kinds of stuff about, getting all these different shots and stuff. Don't be scared. Choose wisely. Choose wisely. For God the Father is in complete control, and all glory goes to God. I thank you for listening to me. I appreciate you being here.
That is a perfect conclusion, Bo. Thank you for coming on. We appreciate your time, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you, Noah. God bless.